BYU football team is coming off of a bye week, getting ready for its final home game as it takes on Idaho this Saturday. I'm Jared Lloyd, sports editor for the Daily Herald, here with Jason Franchuk, BYU football columnist for the Daily Herald. We're here at Legacy Hall, and Jason, this building holds a lot of memorabilia from BYU sports, commemorates a lot of great games. I don't think this Saturday is going to be one of those.
I don't think they saved a section of the museum for this particular game, but we have to speak in hushed tones. We're in a museum. I mean, this is a really cool place. If you haven't walked through here, fans, I mean, this is a really neat place, a lot of memorabilia. I've seen fans on visiting teams come through and realize, oh, I didn't realize that guy played here. I didn't realize that guy played here. But on to this game now that we're going to talk about Idaho. Bye week's done. Time to get back to work and 3 regular season games, and we'll see how focused this team is. Can they get better? They're not going to get credit for getting better, Jared. We know that. But can they get better is the question. How healthy can they be getting into December and likely a bowl game? But Idaho comes in one of those situations where BYU fans almost have to say, hey, at least we're not in that situation. It hasn't been a great season, but at least we're not those guys right now.
It's been a tough year for Idaho, and one win is all they've been able to manage. Head coach is gone. So in other words, what do you expect to see from BYU in this particular game? What can you take from it in going against an opponent that, like you said, really hasn't done very much?
And I don't think Jared Bronco leverages this game this way, but I think if you're a young guy in this program, you take this as an opportunity to look at 2013 and try and play well and try and be consistent in practice. I think this is a time for young guys to really step up and say, hey, I'm going to be just as consistent. I'm not going to treat this game any differently than I would treat Boise State, Utah, because you want to be consistent. That's where this program has been strong, is consistency. The other thing to me is, hey, it's a chance for older players. Maybe James Lark gets a chance to play. Everybody seems to want him, and they've talked about him. It's a chance for Ziggy Ansah to show off to scouts. Not necessarily that they're going to say, oh man, that guy did great against Idaho, but it's a consistency thing. It's how do you get down to work? How do you get down to business? We got to write them just as well as we'd write Boise State, Utah, all those games. So the pressure's on us too. So they got to play well. We got to write well.
You mentioned a couple of the seniors, and some of them have played a lot. Some of them have had surprising roles like Ansah, who's really stepped up. But this is the last home game. Does that make a difference to these guys?
You know, I think it does more down the road. Actually, it's funny, Jared, because I started doing this story on the whole blanket, the ceremony and everything. And it's funny that the guys that are older that I've talked to, well removed from their college days, have a lot fonder memories of the last home game and the blanket ceremony than even the ones that are a few years removed. I guess age does that. The stories get a little better, and maybe you start to think of it a little more fondly. I guess I'm like that in some stories too. But I think it's going to be a game when they're not necessarily going to remember it, I don't think, Jared, for what happens on the field. I just think it's going to be one of those blowouts. I think BYU's, a 37 or 38 point favorite at this point, but I think it's going to be one of those things happen on the sidelines, things happen in the locker room. And for a lot of these guys, I think it's important for them to not be so spoiled, because I remember, Jared, 2005 when Bronco took this job, this team would do anything, and I mean anything, to get back to a bowl game. I think they got to, if Bronco doesn't remind them of that, they've got to remember that it could be worse, and maybe that's the motto for senior day or something here.
Well, and it's tough for fans, I think, because you see all the close games, all the close losses, and you think, hey, it could be better.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the mindset going in for a lot of fans. But I think for the team, you're right. At this point, there's nothing they can do about what's happened in the past. So it's all about taking advantage of the time they've got, younger players looking ahead, older players enjoying the final home game, you know, as they close out their careers at BYU and move on to finish off the season strong, hopefully playing very good football, even if it's not against the greatest competition.
Yeah, let's remember, they're not the first team to have a disappointing year where they didn't live up to expectations. We've seen that even from Oklahoma the year BYU beat them, and they still went on to finish pretty strong. So I think there's enough character and enough leadership and enough resiliency that I think they're going to come back a little more refreshed than everybody expects. That bye week came pretty late for this program. I think they'll be ready to go and give it 3 solid weeks here of the year.
Okay, well, the next game is against Idaho. Saturday night, 8:15 p.m. We'll be over at Lavelle Edwards Stadium watching BYU take on the Vandals, see how they come out after the bye weekend, and watching the seniors. There's been a lot of guys that have been fun to watch over the years. It'll be good to see them close out their careers at home.